Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Podcast Boys. I am one of your co-hosts, Connor Nielsen, and joining me, as always, is the Comics Kid 2099. How are you doing, Comics Kid?
I'm doing very well, Connor, and yourself?
I am doing very, very well myself. And joining us as a special guest, back for the first time in a while, it's Ben. How you doing, Ben?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Yeah, we're not going to be talking about the Founder 2 Milkshake Boogaloo. We're actually going to be talking about something of a bit of a classic in many a household. This is Walt Disney's 1996 animated feature, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And Ben, why don't you tell us the plot synopsis of The Hunchback of Notre Dame?
So in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, we follow Frollo, a very nice judge man who decides he's going to take care of a disabled gypsy's son. And in the process, he meets another gypsy named Esmeralda, gets really horny, burns down Paris, and then dies.
Yep. That is you before we started, you had said you were going to do a joke synopsis. That's not even a joke. That's the plot of the movie. In all seriousness, when I was watching this movie, I thought, this Frollo guy, he's not so bad. He's got these urges. He doesn't want to be a slave to his own animal instincts. He's just a pretty okay guy. No, I'm just kidding. I can't finish that sentence. No, so when we, about a year and a half ago, when Connor and I don't even remember which episode we did, and Connor gave me a choice of choosing The Founder or choosing The Hunchback of Notre Dame, because those are both movies, Ben, that you like, and I chose The Founder, and then you had told me later that you liked The Hunchback of Notre Dame more than The Founder, and I will go ahead and say I had never seen this movie before. I don't know about you, Connor, but so I was.
I don't think he has either. I remember discussing it with him, and he hadn't seen it either. I don't think.
Yeah, this was the first time for me.
Oh, cool. Okay, so Ben, I guess this is going to sound more confrontational than I want, but why don't you tell us what?
Why do you like this movie? Damn it!
Yeah. What is it? Because I like the movie too. I don't know about you, Connor, but what was it about this that makes you say this is your favorite Disney movie?
Okay, a couple reasons. One, spoilers ahoy, for everyone who has not seen this 16-year-old, no, 20, over 20 years old. It's an over 20 year, it's an over 20-year-old movie. Who hasn't seen it. Things I like about it. For one, I really respect the animation is brilliant. The landscaping and the way Notre Dame looks is absolutely breathtaking. And then to sound like a bit of a normie, Frollo is an absolutely amazing villain, one of Disney, if not Disney's best. I really respect Quasimodo as a character. I think he's written very well. All the characters are written very well. And I like the fact that it's very different. It's very dark compared to what Disney was doing at the time. And honestly, mad respect for not giving him the girl in the end. Mm-hmm. Like, I got mad respect for that. Plus, honestly, the music is probably some of my favorite in terms of Disney music, because Bells of Notre Dame is fantastic. Out There is my favorite Disney song of all time. The Gargoyles song is fine, and then honestly, the movie's just really funny to me. I think a lot of the jokes work, and it's something that's a good kind of. This is gonna sound really bad. A good gateway movie out of happy-go-lucky Disney to something more serious, not just like all happy-go-lucky rainbows that Disney did do a lot at the time, even if it does have a happy ending.
Yeah. So I can't disagree with really anything you said. Connor, what do you think? Do you like this movie?
Yeah, I guess I should say that when it comes to Disney animation, I did not grow up with it. Have we ever talked about a Disney animated film before, Comics Kid?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I don't know if I think I may have talked about this on our License to Kill podcast, but I did not grow up with Disney animation. I think I could count the number of Disney animated movies that I watched in like the first 12 years of my life on like one hand, because I grew up in the era of Pixar, so I remember going to the theater to watch A Bug's Life and Toy Story 2 and Finding Nemo and movies like that, but when it came to the actual like Disney proper, I watched movies that were coming out post 1995, which does include this, but I mean, I don't even know if I was 1 year old yet, so I was definitely not going to a theater to watch this. But I saw Tarzan, I saw Mulan, and I remember going to the theater to watch Atlantis: The Lost Empire, and I went to the theater to watch Treasure Planet, two of which are now considered the most underrated movies ever by people who are exactly my age and watched those movies in theaters when they were 5.
Atlantis is not underrated. It got exactly what it deserved. Here's the hot take: that movie sucks. I don't like Atlantis all that much at all.
But so I've only seen like a handful of Disney movies, and in the last, I would say 6-ish years, really honestly, the best thing to come out of the Disney remake, creative bankruptcy era, it would be that I'm actually going back to watch all of these animated movies I missed. So I did finally watch. I still have not seen Cinderella, but I did go back and I watched stuff like Beauty and the Beast for the first time before that live action movie came out. I saw stuff like The Lion King for the first time before The Lion King actually came out, like the remake, stuff like that. So I've now finally seen Sleeping Beauty. I've now finally, you know what? Actually, I did see Sleeping Beauty as a child, but I was 3 years old, and the only thing I remembered about it was that Maleficent turned into a dragon. And that was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And it was so cool. I actually stole my cousin's VHS tape of it. But then I felt so guilty about stealing her VHS tape that I never watched it. So, yeah.
But you kept the tape, right?
But I kept the tape.
Okay.
And it was not until many years later. I think we were both like 19 or 20, and she came up to visit. And I was still staying with my parents at the time. And she was like, "Oh, Sleeping Beauty on VHS. You know, I had this as a little girl, and then I lost it." And I went, "Yeah, it's because that's yours. I stole it from you." And she was like, "Are you serious? That was like my favorite movie as a little girl." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry." But I think she has it now. So, anyways, I have gone back and I've watched a lot of the Disney Renaissance films. I remember liking. I've been liking these as I've been going back to watch them. So this is kind of interesting. I think as far as the way Disney is remembered, this is sort of right when this is after The Lion King, when the Disney Renaissance, I think in a lot of people's eyes was, or at least financially, was running a little stale. Like, I know there's this and there's Hercules and there's like one or two others in the later 90s.
Tarzan was right after Hercules, and then the Renaissance was killed after that.
Okay. And Tarzan's a good movie, all right?
It is. I rewatched it this week,
Phil Collins' music, like Crashing the Camp, that's a good jam, okay?
Briefly off topic, it's actually funny how much difference 1 year makes in that regard, because, so I was born in 94, and I had, I grew up with a mega ton of Disney movies, and because my parents I had this massive stack of VHS tapes of all of them, and I would just watch them on repeat all the time. And this was one of the ones I watched the most. This and Aladdin were the two I watched the most growing up.
And that's another one I didn't watch as a kid, and I just watched recently. By the way, just off the top of anybody's head, does anyone know what year Aladdin came out?
93, I think.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. I'm glad I know that now. I'll come back to that in a second.
93 or 92.
I haven't even talked about what I thought of this movie. I just keep talking about Disney movies that aren't The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
And your Life of Crime. We're recording, but
you master thief.
Yeah.
I do not want a document of that. So let's I'll switch topics. But there was a lot of people, Ben, that are like my age and like my cousin's age, and like they all had Disney, and like Disney was this kind of cultural thing, like a touchstone that I understood the references, and like through osmosis, like I understood what a lot of people were talking about. But I did not watch them. When I was a kid growing up, when I went to the video store, I did not rent Disney movies, or when I went to the library, I did not borrow Disney movies. I borrowed and rented James Bond movies and Godzilla movies and Star Wars. It was all about Star Wars. Those 6 Star Wars movies I watched constantly. So Disney is like kind of this thing where it's like everyone else had Disney, and then I watched cheap Japanese monster movies. You know what I'm saying? Like, so for me, a lot of people say The Lion King is the greatest movie of their childhood. I say Lion Who. It's all about Godzilla versus Monster Zero. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, what I'm saying is this education has been really great in terms of Disney education. And watching Hunchback of Notre Dame was pretty interesting because I would say I enjoyed the movie. And I want to watch it again because this was one where there was some mystique surrounding it. This was not a story or a movie that I knew every last detail about. I knew what Quasimodo looked like. I knew like Esmeralda is like the girl, and I know that Frollo's the bad guy, and I know and Hellfire is like that song that everybody talks about as like one of the best Disney songs ever. And I kind of knew what the movie looked like, but that's all I knew about it. And so watching it, when it ends with hot lava pouring down a cathedral, I was like, this got metal, okay? And so I enjoyed it, but I want to go back and watch it because like there is that sort of discovery of, well, I didn't know about this. Wait, what? What? And also, I think the movie has actually aged very well. In terms, we can get into that in a little bit later. But I think that as far as its place in the Disney chronology, it's interesting because I think the success of something like Beauty and the Beast gave them the ambition to do something like this. It's kind of similar as far as like a European fable with some kind of like gothic or it goes for it. You know what I'm saying in terms of the drama, but then also post Aladdin, there is a similar structure to Aladdin that I'm noticing. So yeah, I liked it, and I look forward to talking about it more. I'd say my favorite thing about it is how, like, first of all, the first like 5 minutes, like everything before the, I guess Lion King style, you have like this opening song title drop. And that was like really cool. It felt like Disney looking at Fritz Lang, something like Metropolis or Die Nibelungen or some like crazy German expressionist Gothic opera or something. Like, it's so cool. And I didn't expect to get that when I was watching The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Now, it is a Disney movie first and foremost, so a lot of this does hit those familiar beats, but I did really like it, and I've been talking for approximately 10 minutes. So, Comics Kid, why don't you talk about what you liked or thought about The Hunchback of Notre Dame?
Okay, I liked it, and I want to kind of piggyback off something you kind of ended with there. I've probably seen the majority of like what you would consider to be the important air quotes like Disney canon. I know I have seen Cinderella. I think I've seen Sleeping Beauty. Most of them though were in my childhood, and I only saw them once, and then I never saw them again. But with I know that Disney has this reputation for being like air quotes very kidified, and I'm sure there are some movies where you could watch it and you could say, yeah, this feels like they were pandering to the kiddies. But watching this, I forgot, like, I was just thinking, like, this definitely does not feel like they were, like, there's some, like, you've got the grotesques that are Quasimodo's friends, or gargoyles, if you will. I think a gargoyle is something that, like, it's like part of the gutters where it pours water out, and a grotesque is just, like a statue. But like, those things feel like they were made specifically, we have to have something for the little kiddies. But then, like, this movie, seconds after it opens, Frollo says, like, I am going to send this malformed creature back down to hell itself. And it's like, whoa, like, this is not what I was expecting from the House of Mouse. And I agree with what Ben said earlier. This is like a good transitionary film from, like, song and dancing and talking animals. And you've got a little bit of that here. This is a musical, and you've got the cute little goat, and then you've got the talking grotesques. But it also isn't trying to chain itself to being a kids movie also. And so I agree with what Ben said. This is a good, if you're just getting, like, even if you've got like a kid who's just starting to get tired of that brand of what Disney is known for, this is a good movie to kind of get them up to the next level, if you will. And so I appreciated that it wasn't trying to, I don't want to say dumb itself down, but I appreciate that it wasn't trying to just be a kid's movie, that it was willing to be a little dark in places. Like you said, Connor, that it was very metal I will say I like most of the characters in the movie. I think they're all, even the good guys, they've all got their flaws, and that can be hard to do. Some, whenever I'm looking at my own writing, where I'm trying to write a story, it can be difficult for me to think like, I want this character to feel flawed, but also I want people to like this character. And sometimes that can be difficult. You can read a story or watch a movie, and a character may have flaws, and you may still like the character, or depending on your experiences with people in real life, you may say, that character reminds me of someone I know in real life. I hate this character, or something like that. But I feel like, of your four main humans, I think they all, they feel very real, and I kind of like that. And I think we could talk about you had talked about the romance stuff, kind of between Ben and I'm sorry, Ben, you had talked about the romance stuff, between Esmeralda. Yeah.
Hey Ben, how you doing over there, boy?
But I think that that was handled. I liked it at the end. So I'm glad we all like this movie.
I am too. I was going to get really upset if Connor didn't like it.
You're gonna say, if you pull this nonsense again, you're gonna get expelled from. No, that's a reference to our previous. Anyway, so if you don't mind, I was kind of wondering, does anyone here think that Esmeralda is kind of using Quasimodo a little bit? Like, I'm thinking of when Go. Okay,
No. You finish your line of thought, because I'm glad it's the first thing we're talking about.
When Phoebus gets stabbed at one point, she brings him to Quasimodo, and it's like, Quasi, you're such a good friend to me. Will you help him, please? And I think she kisses him on the cheek, and Quasimodo, who has probably never even spoken to a girl, this is the first woman who's ever, she's nice to him, as he tells Frollo at one point, she was kind to me. And so he kind of feels like, well, I have to help her because she was kind to me. And, when you are, especially when you're younger, like, let's say when you're a teenager, and a girl is nice to you, and you think, maybe I have a chance with her. And maybe in her mind, she's just being nice to you, and there's nothing sexual going on there. But in your mind, it's like, well, she was nice, so maybe there is. And so I feel like Quasimodo has kind of got that going on. And I do agree with you, Ben. I'm glad that they didn't suddenly have Esmeralda say, I think I like Quasimodo over this, handsome Adonis who came back from the war. But I do kind of feel like she's using him a little bit, like, oh, he has a thing for me, so maybe I can use that to my advantage. What does everyone else think of that?
I think you're about half right with that. Like, I think it's a case of, I think when she's leaving the church, she's kind of using him, because, with her kissing his cheek, that gives the impression that she knows he has a crush on her. Mm-hmm. But I do think when Phoebus is brought into the church, I do think that's a genuine case of, I don't know where else to put him. Like, I don't think she's being manipulative at that point towards Quasimodo, because she knows that he's really kind of the only chance. She knows that there's not exactly really any other options.
That's fair.
But like at first she's using him. I do agree with that a little bit. Yeah, like she's kind of using the fact that he likes her to her advantage. Probably because she's, with how she is, she's probably used to doing that when it comes to how people see her.
Yeah.
This movie, I didn't expect anything coming from like an animated film coming from a major studio, let alone Disney, to release something this transparently horny. I was shook. Everybody, all of the dudes are simps in this movie. It's insane. And
even the gargoyles.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like the animators are like going like, oh, I can feel their hot breathing, like, as I'm watching this movie. Like they're like, well, okay, who do we got to voice Esmeralda? We got Demi Moore, and like I don't know, like I was shocked that something was like this horny. And also they're using the characters to, like, the animators are using the characters to really speak through. So yeah, it's a little interesting, because I feel like when you do have something that is dealing with these kinds of emotions, it's very easy for I don't know, like it's very easy to make this not well aged. And it's easy to maybe like have the foot in the mouth, as it were. And I'll probably put my foot in my mouth 100 times in this video, so it's not easy to do. So I actually want to commend them for how they handle that whole dynamic, because, if you want to make a piece of art that's horny, ain't nothing wrong with that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, honestly, talking about these types of feelings in a children's film, and one that also, like, if you're a child, this movie looks so much more important than other Disney movies because of the sort of highly theatrical, gothic bombast it has. And dealing with these sorts of, heightened emotions in the sort of heightened way, I think it does earn the more mature reputation that this film has. And, but it's good to deal with horny emotions in a children's film. I think so, and it's not being lewd. It's not being perverse. It's not being, it's not being irreverent about it. It's being thoughtful, and I really appreciated that, because this is a movie for boys, and I think it's a message that young boys, I think, would do well to learn at a younger age, and that is, you will interact with pretty girls. You will if you are, if you're gay, you'll interact with pretty boys. You will. The point is, you will interact with people you are attracted to. Right, you will have a sexual awakening, most likely. You will interact with these people, and you will most likely be the Quasimodo in this exchange.
Oh.
No, it's true. Like, I've been the Quasimodo in many high school exchanges and interactions. Like, I pined after this one girl my entire high school career, and I got one date with her because she was being nice to me, and that was the end of it. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. And, it's like, there's nothing I can do about it. And that's okay. Life goes on. All that pining and hoping and hubba, all that was all in my head. And then there is reality. And what you have here at the core of it is you have Quasimodo and you have Frollo. They're basically two sides of the same coin. They both live in the same house, or, well, okay. They don't, but, like, they are both, like, one takes care of the other, right? And one is effectively just, I want her, and if she doesn't want me, then she's a slut. Like, that is absolutely a reaction I see boys and men have. That is absolutely
is the original incel.
No,
yeah,
dude, like Hellfire is an incel anthem. Like, and it's like, and I think it is good that it is in this movie, and it is a villain song, because, I mean, I'm absolutely positive, like, we had that opening joke. I am sure there are people who do see this as a tragedy of Frollo.
Yeah.
Movie. But, like, oh, sorry, I've been talking a bit. What was that?
Oh, no, I was agreeing with you. We live in, and I would say this even goes back, a generation before me, probably, but, like, when you have people who are raised by movies and TV, and then movies and TV show, there's the guy and he moves to a small town, and then on his first day of school, he has the meet cute with the girl, and then she's instantly smitten with him and he's instantly smitten with her. And then, they go on some kind of adventure, and then they're a hot item by the end. And when you have people who watch movies and TV shows that portray that, whether they realize it or not, audiences are internalizing that and thinking that that is how it is. And so, like you were saying, Connor, you pined after this girl. And in real life, human beings have agency. And so if you're pining after a girl, she may not be interested in you. Like you said, Connor, she may be nice to you because she doesn't want to be rude, but she may not want to get in bed with you or whatever. And so, like, I think this movie, you're right. I think this movie is the counterpoint to, and of course I can't think of any good examples off the top of my head, but, like, this movie is a good counterpoint to what you are seeing in movies and TV, where it tells you that, like, oh, your first day of high school, you may meet a girl, and then you two are going to end up married someday. That's just, not entirely realistic. You may not physically look like Quasimodo, but like you said, Connor, there's a good chance that you're going to have, and let's be honest, guys are probably more, like, in their mind, they are like, yeah, she's hot. I want to get with her. There's probably some of that going on with the ladies, but probably more so with the guys. And so this is a good, like, hey, this is more realistically how it's going to be.
Yeah, can I piggyback off of something that Connor said a little earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go for it.
With you mentioning with how it's dealing with those ideas and like those ideas of like, oh, you are going to meet someone and you might be the Quasimodo. It does kind of show the not what's the right word, the skill at work with the directors, because I don't know if you guys know this, the people who directed this also directed the animated Beauty and the Beast, which
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it's like that's kind of like it's showing like their skill at that, because like you said, this could have easily been botched really, really bad. Like they could have really messed up with the whole idea, and like it's doing something like giving Quasimodo the girl or making Esmeralda, like, because it's interesting because the movie itself doesn't put us in Quasimodo's head when she's around. It's very much in a case of like when she's around him, we can still tell that this is a person and not like, an object or some sort of unattainable thing. And they could have easily have done that, and it's really appreciated they didn't. Like it's really smart if they didn't do that.
I would agree. This could have so easily been like, this feels sort of inspired by maybe like perspective, and what you were talking about, comic skit, about the way media influences the audience and the way they internalize that in the real life. This could have easily just been animators doing wish fulfillment, and it's not. But also what I like about it is that the dude she ends up with, Phoebus, I was a little sad he did not have a sidekick named Futhead, and but Phoebus is like not a bad guy, you know what I mean? And like the movie is better than having Esmeralda have the hots for this good looking dude because he is a good looking dude. She's like skeptical of him, and he has to prove that he is a good man who acts as a good man, is not just a good guy who's a nice guy who's just following orders. Like, he does need to prove himself. And so when they end up together, it's like, I don't know. I think it's
also kind of a cool thing with that. I remember someone mentioned this when I talked to them before, and it was something I never really thought of until this viewing of the movie. It makes actually a lot more sense than it seems that Esmeralda ends up with Phoebus, because, men throughout the whole movie, including Frollo and Quasimodo, sort of see her as just like, it was something like, they said something like Frollo treats her like a demon, Quasimodo treats her like an angel, but Phoebus just treats her like a person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that could just be, refreshing for her. Like, oh, I'm actually being treated like a person. And I totally buy them falling in love with each other. Her more so than, I buy her falling in love with him more than I buy him falling in love with her. I don't like it all. It works still, but I don't fully see what he sees in her from his perspective. But it works well enough that it doesn't bother me for the movie all that much.
That is, I'm of two minds on this, because I saw that this was only an hour and a half, and I thought, all right, like I get so sick and tired of movies that think they have to be 2.5 hours long, and I just like, I have to set aside an entire day to watch it. And this movie, I was like, this is awesome. Like, and this may be heresy, but I didn't even stay for the credits. So really it was like an hour and 20. But also, even though I appreciated that this movie, and of course it's an animated movie, so when it's animated, they're not going to be going for a 2.5 hour epic. But also, when this movie is only an hour and 20 minutes, they are real. At times, you find yourself like, wait a minute, why does Phoebus fall for Esmeralda? Because, like you said, we don't get to spend very many scenes with those two. There's a scene where she's avoiding getting apprehended by the soldiers, and he's like, oh, what a woman. And then later, he says, oh, I'm sorry, she claims sanctuary. They have their little like sword fight thing with the candle holder, and like you get a couple scenes with them, but then, like you said, as far as her, he doesn't really know what she's like. He just he's met her, and he knows that she's a victim of the system. But you're right, like, that's where like it would have been nice if we could have gotten a couple of extra scenes where we could have seen what does he see in her. Also, like you, it didn't bother me too much. But another example of me saying like, man, I wish we could have just had a little bit more movie here. I liked whenever Quasimodo and Phoebus are working together, and they're both like, they don't get along with each other. Quasimodo is probably the aggressor in this, where he's like, I don't like this guy, and the reason is because Esmeralda likes him. But I kind of like that. I kind of would have liked to, like, if this was a TV show, I would have loved an entire episode of Phoebus and Quasimodo like doing some kind of investigation where they're looking for Esmeralda, and there's hostility there, and by the end they kind of like each other a little more. And so we got a little bit of that, but then whenever they get captured, I was like, it's over already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can we talk about the speaking of that part of it, man, the two of them have really good chemistry, and Tom Holtz and Kevin Kline give great performances in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
think Kevin Kline's a little better in Road to El Dorado, but either way.
Who is he in Road to El Dorado?
He was Tulio.
I did not know that. The thing I know Kevin Kline mostly from Bob's Burgers, and so when I started watching this, I was like, what do I know this voice from? And then I Googled it. I'm like, oh, it's Mr. Fish Odor. And so now, like, when I go back to Bob's Burgers, I'm going to be like, where's Esmeralda? Why is he, like, asking for the rent again? But yeah, I had no idea he was in Road to El Dorado.
Yeah.
Either way, what were you saying, Connor?
I didn't know when this had come out in relation to something like Aladdin, which sort of popularized the get a celebrity to voice your character sort of trend. And so I'm watching it and I'm like, wow, this guy sounds, like, Quasimodo sounds a lot like any number of like voice actors. So I'm not really going to look that up. And then Esmeralda shows up. I'm like, okay, that sounds like a live action actress doing animation. Not that Demi Moore is doing like a bad job or anything. It's just like, I know what a lady voice actress typically sounds like in the 1990s. And I'm like, okay. And then Phoebus shows up and I'm like, okay, I've heard this voice before. And so I just had to like pause it and look it up. It should be said that we, this was chosen because the Twin Peaks connection is Tony Jay, who voices Frollo the villain. He was in 2 episodes of Twin Peaks season 2. As Dougie Milford, the mayor's brother, who gets married to and then quickly dies after marrying Robin Lively's Black Widow Southern Belle character. He's great in this as Frollo. One of those great evil, menacing voices. If this was a movie, I could see this character being played by like Jeremy Irons or Peter Cushing. But
someone said Willem Dafoe would be a good Frollo, but I'm not sure I agree with that.
Well, I mean, if they were to do it, he could be good. I think the way Tony Jay's playing is very much with like a Christopher Lee, like dark, like elegance. Where I don't know, like what's his name? Willem Dafoe has a sort of like scrappy little guy voice, and he always sort of looks like kind of like this scrappy hoodlum. Whereas someone like Peter Cushing or Christopher Lee or someone, it kind of has that. Like they're kind of big in stature, and they
honestly, since we're getting a live action remake of Hunchback, apparently, like Disney is working on it. My personal vote would have gone to Michael Gambon. I think he'd be a good Frollo.
Ooh, he'd be excellent. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree that Willem Dafoe. Like when you said that, my mind immediately went to what's that movie, Connor? Wes Anderson, the hotel movie.
Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yes. In that. Willem Dafoe is the second, like he's the guy working for the bad guy. And if someone had gone back in time and said, what if we swapped him with Adrian Brody, I would have said, oh, I don't know. I think Willem, like, and it's weird because my introduction to Willem Dafoe is Spider-Man, where he is the top dog. But in a movie like this, like, before Connor said that, I was thinking like, yeah, Willem Dafoe would have, like, if there was, one of these lower grunts who's like, kicking Phoebus after he refuses to burn the house down, like I could imagine Willem Dafoe playing one of them. But it was really like, maybe it's just like Tony Jay kind of has that like elite voice, like he feels like he is a one of the upper crust, one of the 1%, and Willem Dafoe kind of feels like he's more like the little guy, like he could still be a bad guy, but he doesn't feel like he's part of that like upper echelons of society so much. But yeah, I agree with everything else you guys said, like Michael Gambon or Jeremy Irons or Peter Cushing. I think those, like each one of those, I was like, yeah, yes. Like I'm just like I've got my hot breath going, Connor.
Get a British guy with a deep voice, and you're good.
Mm-hmm. Peter Capaldi could do okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My thing is Peter Capaldi's funny.
Yeah,
and I'm sure he could do dramatic, but he's
he's gotten very dark as the Doctor in Doctor Who. Like he's gotten very dark in that. So
okay.
But either way, with the movie itself, you're right that like Tony Jay absolutely kills it as Frollo in this, and like it's a weird thing of like I think he's one of the only like main cast that's like a voice actor first. I'm not sure how much Tony Jay's done as like an actual actor. Because Tom Holtz was like in Amadeus, and Demi Moore is in things that Demi Moore is in.
G.I. Jane, hello.
And then Kevin Kline is in like everything. But I think he's probably gives the best performance of the movie. Honestly, with Tony Jay. Like
yeah.
You agree, Connor? Or
yes I agree.
Okay. Yeah, I think.
Now, wait, correct me if I'm wrong. Tony Jay did sing this?
He did, yes.
Is that correct? Yeah, because I'm noticing on the credits there's Quasimodo, but there's like Demi Moore plays Esmeralda, but Heidi Mollenhauer plays Esmeralda's singing voice. And that's a pretty common thing with animated musicals. But that's cool that Tony Jay sang, because I think there is some continuity in terms of that, because I can kind of tell in like The Lion King, Jonathan Taylor Thomas ain't singing like that, you know what I mean?
yeah I think like I don't know if you guys have seen Nightmare Before Christmas, but in that, like, you've got your singing voice and then you've got your speaking voice, and I didn't even realize that this was just like Tony Jay was doing the singing and speaking, but props to him for that.
Yes.
What did you guys think of the Gargoyles, or the Grotesques, or whatever we want to call them?
The Gargoyles, I have a bit of a controversial opinion on them in terms of like them in the movie. I think the three of them are very funny, but I will agree that they don't fit at all. Mm-hmm. And they bring them, and whenever they're on screen, they do bring the movie down, especially Jason Alexander. He's trying, but damn it, it doesn't work. His style of comedy does not work for this kind of a movie.
Yeah, Connor, this reminds me of when we talked about Willow, where the two brownies are like, they're here like to do the air quotes comic relief. We want the little kiddies to have some fun in the movie, because when you have Tony Jay talking about stabbing a malformed infant and sending it straight to hell, like, we have to have fun while we're doing that. And so I can kind of get what they're doing. Like, we don't want it to be too dark and dreary, so we want to have a little levity. But I would have preferred, instead of adding the air quotes comic relief characters, to just have levity come from your main cast. Like, have Esmeralda say a joke, or have, Phoebus has a couple of funny lines. He's, I would say, pretty funny, but also, like, you can take him seriously as a character as well.
I like the one of the funniest jokes in the movie for me isn't even like one from the main cast. It's that old guy in the what do you call those things? Like
the stocks. Yes.
Yeah, I'm free. Oh, dang it!
So the first time it happened, I was like, okay. And then the second time he falls down, I think they call it Monsieur. I was like, okay, like, bravo, like, that's legitimately funny. And that, I feel like that's how you do like the rule of three thing. Like, in the Suicide Squad movie, the most recent one, I kind of got tired of like the jokes where they would keep doing it, do the rule of three thing. But here, you do it once and then you do it again, and but they spread it out throughout the movie, and so I wasn't expecting it. So yeah, I'd forgotten about the old guy, but yeah, like for Phoebus, like, I kind of like, it's not even like a knee slapper, but like one point when he's telling Quasimodo, look, I'm not here to arrest Esmeralda. And by the way, could you put me down? And then it pans out and Quasimodo's like holding him up, like 2 feet off the stairs, and it's like, oh, okay, like, that's kind of a dry humor, and that works, I think. And then like Phoebus, when he has the horse sit on the guys, it's like, okay, that's funny, I guess. But I didn't care for the gargoyles. And especially like you said, Jason Alexander, I think, is the one that's the most off-putting for me. I didn't care for. If I was a kid, I probably would have liked them the most out of this movie. But now I was just like, I don't like it.
Yeah, the gargoyles I wasn't really down with. They kind of try playing it. Well, okay, I love the payoff where it's like you're not exactly sure if this is in Quasimodo's head or not. And then with the ending of Frollo hanging from like the one like dragon head or whatever, and then like it moves, and that's what causes him to let go. But even then, it's not like that's like a payoff with one of the gargoyles we've been following, right? And I don't know, like I think that the comic relief is a little, it's definitely they're covering the 4 quadrants. This is for the children in the audience, and I understand that. That being said, it's like I saw this in a YouTube video, and I'm so glad somebody pointed this out in movies, because now I see it everywhere in a film distributed by Walt Disney Pictures. I can't remember. I really wish I could remember who said this, but they had said that this is like the part of the movie called like the parents go fill up the popcorn scene. And like that to me is the Gargoyles song. And it's like, I understand what it is if they are like kind of okay. I really hope the gargoyles are not real and they are just Quasimodo's imaginary friends, because then that song makes a whole lot more sense. If they're not, if they are real, wow, they really set Quasimodo up for some heartbreak. Okay, shame on them, effectively. But
I get the impression that with the movie that Disney, I think what might have happened, obviously I have no basis on this, I think Disney made them put them in there, and then they're like, okay, well, we're going to make them imaginary, because especially the end of that song really heavily implies that they're imaginary in his head. But then Disney saw the movie, and then they're like, well, the kids won't get it, so make them real, because then, in the final fight, they're helping Quasimodo win the fight. It's like, well, then they have to be real. Like, well, and the gargoyles are weirdly like the advocate for like the biggest issue with the movie, which is its tone, in the fact of when it's doing its dark, like more serious stuff, it's really good. But then when it's trying to be a Disney movie, that's when it's falling a little bit more flat in its face.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, Ben, because I would agree 100% with that. Because like the opening sequence is like the opening sequence of The Lion King, where it is like this movie just stands up and like throws down and is like, yo, this is what's up. And you're like, wow, I am hooked. But I think what holds us back from something, in my eyes, that is like the quality of Beauty and the Beast or The Lion King, is that then you have to meet Quasimodo and his gargoyles, and it feels so familiar. And that's where I'm a little like, like early on I was a little like, oh, we're doing this. Okay. And then as the movie progressed, I began to like it a lot more. And that's why I say I want to watch it again, because the Disney-ness and the conventionality of the setup, it did kind of turn me off a little bit. And I would say that the comedy is my least favorite thing, because you're right, Ben. It does sort of fight with the tone a little bit. The gargoyles are, of course, the biggest perpetrators of that. But I also think that Esmeralda's animal sidekick also contributes to that.
Oh, yeah.
To the degree that, and I'm sorry, I know everyone loves this movie, it's like Sandman and Spider-Man No Way Home, where every time it cuts to Sandman or every time it cuts to the little goat, I feel like it's like been inserted into a movie that is finished, and it's like we needed an extra shot here. What is this character doing? And like the goat is like very rarely in shots with other characters, the same way Sandman is like very rarely in shots with other characters. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, I feel like I'm watching some kind of phantom edit where somebody has like made their own animated goat and like inserted it into the margins of a finished film. But you're right, Comics Kid, I would absolutely agree that like stuff like the horse, like Phoebus,
Achilles.
Achilles heel. That's a great line, by the way.
Yeah.
But like the horse being like instructed to sit on the guy, that's fine. There's like comic relief like that is good. But I think the animal sidekick and the gargoyles, yeah, you hit it right on the money, Ben. That's when it feels like it's tonally taking away from the entire film.
I also hope that the gargoyles are imaginary and not real, but for a different reason, because in the Disney canon, gargoyles only come to life at night. And
Wouldn't that be a wacky crossover?
Yeah, the Quasimodo meets Goliath and his friends from the clan. I would definitely watch that. I'm not joking. I would buy the steelbook. I would be first in line to watch that. Huge Gargoyles fan here. I'm trying to think of any other directions that we can take this. I did find it a little funny how at the beginning, Frollo is about to stab the baby, and then is it the Archbishop who says, "No, you need to raise the baby," and then
he's gonna drown him, not even stab him.
Stop! Sorry, yeah, drown him. Yeah, you're right, because the whale's right there. Which is
weirdly more messed up than stabbing. Like,
yeah,
he's not just gonna stab the baby; he's gonna drown him in a well in a Disney movie. Like,
and the reason I'm thinking of stabbing is because at the end of the movie he has the knife. But
he tries to stab. Yeah.
So then the clergyman says, "No, you need to raise the baby because you just killed this woman." And he says, "Okay, we'll put the baby. The baby can work in the church. Hide it away from society." And then like, for some reason, Frollo is the only father figure that Quasimodo has. And I get that that's what the movie is doing, because Quasimodo has been raised to believe that the world is awful and the world will not tolerate him. And then, he goes to the festival and it's kind of proven to be true. Everyone's revolted by him.
I was going to say that. That's like one of the most interesting things about the movie. Not to cut you off, Comics Head, but it's just like kind of flowing in my brain, is that what's fascinating is that we spend the first 25 minutes or so with Frollo really hammering home that, with Quasimodo, like, you're deformed, you're ugly, people won't tolerate you, people won't understand you, people won't like you. And at first, when he goes to the festival, it has like the typical, like, Disney kids movie thing of, hey, look, people will like you if you just let them understand you. And then Frollo's proven 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's proven completely right with that guy who throws the tomato, and then there's the whole riot and everybody's drunk and throwing stuff at him. But it's and then eventually later on they do sort of accept him. But it's still interesting that they actually went, like, they did have, since I can't swear, the cojones to actually have the villain technically be right. Like, what he was teaching Quasimodo was technically correct. They didn't understand him, they didn't respect him, they didn't like him because of his appearance.
And it all kind of plays into like this sort of interesting, I don't know, I feel like the film does have a self-awareness about society and like an individual's place in society, where and in this way it's very similar to Network. Oh, you know what? That reference is going to make no sense to nobody, because I was talking about Network before we started recording. I am so sorry, everybody. But what I think is interesting here is that Frollo is aware of what society is, and what what society has been, and he is also to some degree an authority in society. So to some degree, like, he does sort of control that perception of someone like Quasimodo, but to some degree he also does not. Like, there is like a difference in him that like is maybe why society would shun him, because he is not, air quotes, normal. I don't know. It's really cool. And I do agree, Ben, like, there's a level of nuance here about somebody who would appear as Quasimodo in society.
Yeah. And so I almost feel like at the end of the movie, everyone is like, hip hip hooray, Quasimodo, he helped kill Frollo. And I almost feel like the only reason they are like cheering for him is because Frollo, like, he's like, well, I'm going to let all of Paris burn so that I can find Esmeralda. And so if Frollo hadn't become so obsessed with capturing Esmeralda, I don't know if the people would have accepted Quasimodo. I'm tempted to think they still would have been like, throwing fruit and vegetables at him if he decided, like, let's say, he said, I'm not going to listen to Frollo. I'm just going to go back outside and, whatever happens, happens. I don't know if they would have change their tune. I think the only reason that they accept him and sing him as a hero is because he is the one who helped get rid of this guy who had become a menace to the entire city.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good point.
It is a really good point. And like, it's speaking on the ending, it's actually really refreshing also. Like, going back to the whole thing of like, not having Quasimodo get the girl in the end. It's not only is it refreshing that he doesn't get the girl in the end, it's even more refreshing that he's cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that he's actually like supportive of the two of them together by the end of the movie. I love that's something I love a lot, and I wish more movies would do that.
Yeah, you don't see it nearly enough. But
the scene of the little girl hugging him is like adorable. Like I'm not gonna.
I like that too.
Sorry. I just wanted to quickly contribute to that. What I like about kind of your hero and your villain being inverses of one another. One thing that I think if you look at, male-female friendships that have no romantic, core to them, and let's say both the male and female are heterosexual. Usually a lot of those friendships are kind of born out of, at one point early on when they first met each other, one had a crush on the other.
Mm-hmm.
And they just became friends. And that's a very common thing. Like I can attest to that. What's interesting about the villain and hero being inverses is Frollo is the incel who is like, I will have this woman who was pole dancing on a spear earlier in this movie. I just want to say the animators put that in a Disney film. Esmeralda pole danced in this movie. That is, you know what? Honestly, like, let's give France or some Paris some recognition. Like the structural integrity of that wooden spear, it has to be pretty sturdy to support the weight of a fully grown human being.
Mm-hmm.
Who is pole dancing on it. But Frollo is saying, hey, if I can't have her, then I'm gonna basically burn her at the stake because she's a temptress witch. And then you have someone like Frollo who is like, hey, I like you a lot. Oh, you don't like me? Well, that's okay. You're still a good person and you are kind to me.
I think you kind of flip-flopped there.
Yeah, you said Frollo for Quasimodo.
Oh, whoops. Yeah, Quasimodo.
Frollo changed his tune after just getting to know Esmeralda a little bit.
Yeah, he realized he could just masturbate, and that gets the job done. Sorry about that. Quasimodo realizes I could just she can reject me, but she's still a good person. She can reject me romantically, but she still accepts me on a personality level, and that is just as satisfying as any romantic relationship could be. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a mature message to send to children.
Yeah. I really like the relationship stuff in the movie. I don't think it pulls its punches. I think that it, like I said earlier, it's a good message to send to kids if they pay attention to it. But I was earlier, I was thinking about, so the clergyman, is he a priest or a pope? Or he's not the pope, but he's like something high up in the church. And he is the one who says, you should raise this kid. And then we never see him interacting with Quasimodo. And I get mechanically, like, the movie needs Quasimodo to only have a negative paternal figure, because if he's interacting with this other guy, then he's not, like, this other guy is going to be a positive influence on him. And then he won't be, he won't have this only voice in his ear telling him that you should stay in the bell tower forever and hide yourself from people. But it is weird to me that this guy lives in the church, and we never once see him interacting with the baby that he saved. I thought that was, I get why they're doing it, but I thought it was weird.
That is odd. You're right.
And I also thought it was a little strange at the beginning. I felt like what they were saying was Frollo was like, okay, we're going to hide the baby so no one will know he exists. Like, he's going to ring the bells, but he's like, as far as anyone knows, he's just completely, he doesn't exist. And then we cut to that jester guy. And by the way, the Bells of Notre Dame, definitely the best Disney song I've ever heard. One of my favorite songs. Just that one sends chills up my spine. The other songs, I like them okay, but really, really love the Bells of Notre Dame at the very beginning. But so then the jester, he is like doing his little puppet show, and he's telling the kids like, well, did you know that there's somebody inside the tower who rings the bells? And I was thinking, oh, this is like this guy is telling the story after the events of the movie, and then like the rest of the movie is like a flashback that would lead up to him telling little kids, and that's the story of Quasimodo. But now I'm not so sure. That could have just been a lead up into the movie, and that like it wasn't a flashback. Because,
yeah, I was getting an Aladdin vibe from it, right?
Yeah,
yeah. Yes, I was thinking the same thing.
Well, what makes me kind of second guess myself is that after Quasimodo goes to the Feast of Fools, and then Esmeralda is inside singing, and he is watching her, and then one of the other people there worshiping says like, "Hey, bell ringer, haven't you get out of here, Quasimodo?" And I was thinking like, oh, do people know he exists? I thought that Frollo was like, nobody is going to know that this guy exists. But then I was like, after he shows his face at the festival, then everyone knows he's the bell ringer. And I wasn't sure if I had missed something, or if that was just like, they're like, we got to, move this story along. We have to reinforce for Quasimodo that people don't like him.
Also at the Feast of Fools or Festival of Fools or whatever, like, there's a part where, like, he doesn't tell anybody his name, and I think like Esmeralda or one of them like calls him Quasimodo. I'm like, wait a minute, when did you figure out his name? Did you realize he wasn't wearing a mask and realize that he was the bell tower ringer? Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, I had a similar thought process to you.
I think it's kind of a case of he might have been a rumor up to that point.
Oh, okay.
Like people might have thought about that. There's there's all these rumblings, or maybe someone in the belt, like maybe someone was in the church, and they saw him ringing the bells from a distance or something, and like it's a thing of, I do agree that's kind of like, wait, how do they know their name? But it is also kind of a thing of, who cares? That doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. But I will agree that it's a little confused as to like the whole what do you call it, framing device, because he's singing the song again at the end, but he's wearing a different outfit. He's talking to the same woman. He's talking to the same girl too. I get the impression, my own interpretation, I think that him telling the kids this, like, what's going on, begins and ends with the credits, like in the sense of like the opening 5 minutes, the Bells of Notre Dame. I think that's like, once we hit the title, that's when he stops telling the story to the kids, and then from that point on, it's like really like all that stuff's really happening.
Okay. Yeah.
Speaking of that, man, the music in this movie is excellent. Like even just like, I know you like the other songs, okay, but Bells of Notre Dame just on its own, like when you first turn the movie on and you hear like, you hear the chanting in the background and the bells going off, it's like, it's something else. Mm-hmm. Like that, like Alan Menken went hard for this score, and I'm very interested to see if they do end up going like, when Disney announced they're doing a live action remake of this one too, it was like, oh, of course you are, like, duh, because Disney has to do it with everything. But I'm like the guy who plays Clopin is the name of the jester. Man, he's got a voice like that high note he hits at the end there, and I'm like, what? How are they going to do something that's as good or tops that kind of tops that sort of epic opening that we get thanks to the music? Because the music does play a big factor in what makes the movie. The music is what helps makes the movie seem like as huge as it is. Like that's the thing. This movie feels huge. Like it takes up a lot of time. Like it takes up a lot of space in Paris. They have these really big shots of the whole city. And the music adds to that, like, atmosphere. Like we were saying, it feels important. Like, I think, Connor, you're the one who said that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That it feels important. And I think that's something that really does add to that kind of, like, kind of mystique that the movie has. And, it's something that I'm very curious to see how they're going to kind of look into, either recreating or topping, or even just, maybe they'll pull a Mulan and just cut out the music entirely.
Yeah, no, the thought while I was watching this, the thought of them making a live action remake made my skin crawl. Like honestly, and the reason being Mulan, because that was such a that was a Disney animated movie that a lot of people were excited about, and a lot of people were saying, I heard a number of people say that was the only one that was worth doing in live action, and then it came out, and a lot of people. I think it's pretty hard pressed to find anybody who liked that movie, to be perfectly honest. It's really bad. And the thought of them trying to do this, my brain just goes to like they'll hire like Bill Condon or somebody, and it'll just be like heavily CGI. There'll be a big battle scene at the end or whatever. And there's like what's so cool about this, and I think what makes it feel so heightened and theatrical, and it has that gothic bombast, and it's also it's like primarily has like 4 principal characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just thinking about all of the needless characters they're going to throw in, the way they'll rework it. I'm sure Esmeralda will have like 3 brothers that are all participating in a big chase around Paris, because every single Disney live action movie has a big chase around the town at the end, and that'll be happening while they're climbing up the tower. Like I can see the movie in my head right now, and like a live action version of this movie would be cool if they do it right. I just have no faith they would do it right, and that's my worry.
Also, something I'll say that's kind of funny related to modern Disney. I get that it's because the rating system has changed, and like what people see is like for the rating system has changed. It is hilarious to me that this is rated G and Frozen is PG.
Well, also playing into what you're saying, like Disney would never make a movie this horny. Ever. Like, imagine how chaste that live action remake would be. I mean, I know there's not going to be any pole dancing on spears, but like regardless, like it would be so sanitized and like trying to scrub clean like the character dynamics that form the story of this story. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I think make a cool live action or Hunchback of Notre Dame. But luckily, that's a story that's in the public domain. You won't be getting the Disney branding on it. So that's kind of, I think, the sad truth that we live in right now.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen any of the live action remakes, so I'm afraid I don't have much of a take on that. I don't think I've heard anyone say a whole lot of positive about any of them. Like, people are either like, yeah, it was fine, or people are actively against them. Let's take everything from the 90s and remake it now. So I'm kind of surprised that it's taken them this long to even consider it.
Christopher Robin's pretty good for the Disney live action like movies they've been doing.
That's fine. That was also like 4 years ago. You know what I mean?
It's true, but like with the movie itself. Honestly, the only things with animation that I could say bothered me, and it's something you guys probably didn't even notice, but I noticed it on this viewing. Whenever there's a huge crowd, they're usually CG, and it's really distracting.
Yeah, I didn't. Oh, go ahead, Connor.
No, I was gonna say like the bells are CG when they have like those big like flowing like shots of Quasimodo skateboarding down the roof and stuff. Like Quasimodo's the only like traditionally animated aspect of element there. Everything else is like CG. Like that was kind of there in like Beauty and the Beast and some of these other Renaissance. And I agree with you. They're very distracting, very noticeable. Like that smoke coming off the city. It's like, ooh, that is CGI smoke. I have seen my fair share of CGI smoke.
But it's also nice though that that the movie is kind of like, I think this was like just around the time, like only a few years later, where Disney went like, all right, we're cutting out the 2D animation. And watching it, I missed 2D animation. Like, yeah. I wish we'd get more movies like this. Like it's probably why something like Into the Spider-Verse was a little bit more like widely liked, is because that was more so traditionally animated, like this is. But that's just something I'm like, I wish we got more 2D animated movies. But go, sorry, Comics Kid, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
I agree on 2D. I've always been a big fan of 2D. I feel like that's not just movies too. Like this is several years ago now, but they did DC did like Beware the Batman and the Green Lantern animated series, and I liked both of those shows a lot, but I think I would have liked them a little bit more if they weren't experimenting with the 3D element of it, if it had just been a 2D show. But I guess I didn't notice the 3D as much in this as you guys did. I'm thinking of like movies like I think Batman, it's either Mystery of the Batwoman or Sub-Zero, has some like the city is 3D, and it looks noticeably different than the rest of the 2D stuff. And that's around the same time. Of course, I don't know if how much of a budget Warner Brothers had for a movie versus how much Disney was giving Hunchback of Notre Dame, but I feel like this looks better than that. Or like you look at the Spider-Man, the animated series from the 90s, anytime Spider-Man is swinging over the city, it looks noticeably CGI. Whereas when he's like, just talking with Aunt May or Mary Jane, it all looks more consistent. So maybe if I give this another watch, I might notice it a little bit more. But compared to those things from the 90s, I feel like this is much better.
Oh, and also, Connor, to speak with you mentioning with how horny the movie is. One of the funniest things about this movie isn't even the movie itself, because if you go on Facebook, they have a meme posting group for everything. Every movie, every show has something, and there's a page called The Memes of Notre Dame. And there is a whole subgenre of women who are way into Frollo.
Oh, that does not surprise me. Hey, people really like that Jeremy Irons. They find him that voice of his soothing. Yeah, so that was actually one of the things. I'm glad you brought that up. Because I was kind of we talked about the message of the movie, and Comic Seed, you said something I think is important, because you said if it's an important message for children to hear if they get it, and I don't know if I would have gotten it when I was a kid. And it's actually for the reason you're talking about, Ben, and that is because I was always rooting for the villains as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always thought the villains were cool. And so if I was a child, I mean, I wouldn't have been thirsty for Frollo. Not that elderly men can't have it going on. But I probably would have been, I kind of wish he got her. He sings a cool song. He's the cool bad guy. And the fact that he is one of the more memorable Disney villains that a lot of people, remember with fondness, I think that would have increased my desire to see him win. I would watch movies as a kid so that I could watch it was like a video game logic where I would watch movies over and over and over again, wishing that, okay, this time on this VHS tape, I have unlocked the version of the movie where the bad guy wins. You know what I'm saying? When I watch Batman this time, the Joker does not die when he falls off the tower.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, when Frollo falls, I was just thinking, from the '89 Batman. But yeah, two things about that. Number one, Connor, you need to look up. There's this meme. There's a theme from, it might have been the Mortal Kombat games. I don't know. The Guile theme. I don't know what game it's from, but it's from some game, Street Fighter or something. And there's this meme where you put it goes with any scene in a movie, and somebody did it over in The Lion King when Simba's dad falls down, and then he's climbing up, and then what's his name? Scar, claws his paw so that he falls back down into the stampede. And somebody in the comments said, watching it with the Guile theme, they thought, oh, this time he's going to live. He's not going to die. And so seeing that made me think of that. But it's funny you say that you're rooting for Frollo, because I feel like I love to hate this guy. He has got, and he's
I do now. When I was a child, I would be.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, because I think Tony J pulls it off, but I definitely, it surprises me, Ben, that you said anyone was it had anything other than hatred for this character. Because a lot of other Disney villains, I don't know if you guys have seen, there's a musical on YouTube, it's free, called Twisted, and it's the story of Aladdin from the point of view of Jafar. And it's by this, they do a bunch of musicals. They've done 3 Harry Potter ones, and they did a Batman one, and I like what they do. And in Twisted, there's this bit where Jafar is talking with all of these other Disney villains, and they are explaining what they did and kind of why their motivations make sense. And so, for example, Ursula from Little Mermaid is saying that, her brother said women should only be seen and never heard, and she is kind of rebelling against an unjust ruler and stuff like that. And most of like watching that, it's like, yeah, I can kind of see where Scar is coming from, even though he's clearly the bad guy. You know, you can kind of, or Ursula or whatever, Captain Hook, and then like with this, I'm like, you can't, like, he's just evil, and I like that. I like that they're not trying to like, well, what if he has, you know, what if he has a little kid that he takes care of, and he has like a softer side? I'm glad they're not doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I co-sign all of that. Tony J pulls it off. I loved hating him. He was a very contemptible incel villain, and I enjoyed that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I don't. I was just going to ask if anyone else had anything.
I think that it's interesting you guys are mentioning the message of the movie. Because I mentioned this to Comics Kid Connor. I didn't mention it. You weren't here when I said this. I hate myself, so I also decided to watch the second Hunchback of Notre Dame movie to prepare for this. And the whole point of that movie is just to give Quasimodo a love interest, which really kind of spits directly in the face of one of the ideas of this movie. Like, and it's done so badly in that movie. Like, it's like one of the dumbest things in that movie is that the main villain wants to steal a bell called La Fidèle, and the big thing with the bell is that, oh, it's a big bell, but there's a like metric crap ton of jewels inside the bell. And it's like, do you have any idea how terrible that would sound, ringing that bell, hearing it hit diamond? It's interesting though that, like, you know, when Disney's going out of their way to be like, okay, we got to make a sequel to Hunchback of Notre Dame. What do? Let's do the exact thing that we shouldn't do, the exact opposite. Especially since they also give Phoebus and Esmeralda a child, who's very annoying, and I think who's played by Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Oh, weird.
Is it the Sixth Sense kid? Because is the kid's name Zephyr, or is that another character?
Yeah, it's Zephyr, yes.
Okay, it's the kid from the Sixth Sense, yeah.
Okay, then, yeah. Haley Joel Osment, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. But, wait. When did the Hunchback 2 come out?
2002.
Wow, you go from the Sixth Sense, and in 3 years' time, you're in. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. That's so.
Not to mention the villain's played by Michael McKean. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm just bringing up that movie because it's interesting that, like I said, they just go the exact opposite, even to the point of like Phoebus becoming racist of circus folk.
Oh no, Phoebus!
Which is just like, well, wait a second. Like, wasn't that like, once again, wasn't that like the opposite of that? His whole thing in the first movie.
Well, and I don't want to generalize, but isn't that basically what Esmeralda was doing? Like, she didn't have a tent, but like she's doing a lot of like circus-y things in the movie, and he fell for her. Isn't that kind of weird?
It is. Like, I wish Tony J was in the second one somehow, so we could have a double feature and just talk about that movie too. Especially since the funniest thing about it is, if you want to buy the Hunchback of Notre Dame on Blu-ray, you have to have the second one with it. They always just bundle the second movie with the first one.
Ow.
Because they know nobody would buy it.
So, I don't know about, you know, look, Phoebus has a traumatic history with tents. So it was because she didn't have a tent with her, and that's why he's cool with her, okay? You got to remember that. You can live in a catacombs, that's cool. But don't have a tent, okay? But it's funny you mentioned that, because also in 2002, man, the turn of the millennium, Disney was all about just cranking out those straight-to-video sequels to their beloved theatrically released animated films. Because also in 2002, Cinderella 2 Dreams Come True came out. And the only reason I bring this up is the first time I ever went to Disneyland, I was 5 years old or 6 years old. I was a small child, and I remember I'd never seen Cinderella. I still have not seen Cinderella, but I was there, and over the loudspeakers every like hour or so at Disneyland, there would be an automated message of, be sure to watch Cinderella 2 Dreams Come True. And I was like, whoa, was that like a theatrically released movie? Like, they're going to put that in. wow, like Cinderella's like a classic, right? That came out like 100 years ago. Like, I Gotta Be Alive for the sequel. That's going to be huge. And then I never heard of it ever again until I became aware of the straight to video Disney sequels. And so I don't know. I just thought that was funny. Like that was they saw that as the golden goose in the early 2000s.
And then weirdly, Cinderella 3 is actually really good.
Oh, what? They made a third one?
They made a third one, and it has the evil stepmother finding the fairy godmother's wand and time traveling back. So that one.
Cinderella Endgame? Okay.
It's actually really good. Like, it's surprisingly, because it's actually really meta and like it knows what kind of movie it is. So
that sounds amazing.
I would heavily recommend Cinderella 3. I think it's called Cinderella 3: A Twist in Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heavily recommend that one. The second one I would not recommend because that's just 3 episodes of a canceled Cinderella TV show they never finished.
It sounds like Atlantis: The Lost Empire too.
But the third Cinderella I would weirdly recommend.
That sounds awesome. Since you're talking about an element of your childhood, I would be remiss if I did not mention that like I said, I had never seen this movie until now, but I had the VHS tape of Toy Story. I'm just a hair older than you guys, and so like I had probably as soon as that VHS tape came out, my parents got it for me and my sister. We probably watched it hundreds of times, and at least 100 times. And I remember the trailer for this movie by heart. Because we never would fast forward through any of the stuff like the, coming soon to theater or whatever. I remember that voice too, this coming soon to theater.
That trailer is not accurate to how the movie is at all.
No, the trailer makes it seem like it's like a wacky comedy. Like it heavily features the gargoyles and but it makes it look like, it's like, oh, it's fun and dancing and then like, oh, hey, look, he said, like at one point, what a woman, that's in the trailer. The Clopin, is that his name? Saying, here it is, and I was like, every time in this movie when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, that's in the trailer. Like I'm like Leonardo DiCaprio, like pointing at the TV. I'm like, like I recognize that. I know what that's from.
Or even the fact of like one of the big things in the trailer is the Jason Alexander gargoyle going, "Way to go, lover boy."
Yeah, and the bring the wine and cut the cheese. That was another one, and that was the moment where I'm like, oh yeah, that's in the trailer too. But yeah, that I'm glad I was able to visit this movie for the first time, and then revisit all those moments from that 2.5 minute supercut that I knew by heart from my childhood.
Well, speaking of Disney promotional materials, do you guys remember? Like, I didn't have a DVD player till much later in my childhood than I think most people did. I still had a VHS player after 2006. And so I got all these Disney VHSs. I think it was the Tarzan one. And I would play it, and there was this push to buy DVD. And you see this regularly whenever new formats kind of being adopted popularly, in 2007 or 2008, you'll see Blu-ray. If you pop in an early Blu-ray, it's there's some kind of promotional material for, here's a bunch of Disney movies that you can buy on Blu-ray right now, or 4K or whatever. And I remember the DVD one because it was they would show clips from all these Disney movies you could buy on DVD. And it was interesting because it had Toy Story, where they're flying at the end of Toy Story, or Falling with Style. I'd put the comment down. And then the clip right after that was a shot from this movie. And in my memory, I don't know, that shot, it's always stuck with me because it's this weird part traditionally 2D animated, part 3D animated shot where it's this low angle kind of turning shot. And I think the gestures there, or I can't remember. The point is, people always told me that was in Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that shot is not in this movie. It probably is. I'm probably remembering the shot wrong from that promotional material, because my memory has probably obscured it. But based on my memory, I was waiting for that shot, and it never came, and I was disappointed.
You had the Mandela effect.
Yes, precisely.
So I feel like I don't have a whole lot else to say about the movie. Do you guys have any closing thoughts?
I could talk about this movie for hours, but we've been talking about a lot of things, and honestly, I'm actually really hungry. So,
Connor, any closing thoughts?
I enjoyed this. I want to watch it again. It's the sort of Fritz Lang sort of gothic bombast is my favorite thing about it. My favorite song probably is The Bells of Notre Dame. Very good movie. I enjoyed it. I don't know how I would compare it to something like Aladdin or The Lion King or something, but it's definitely in that tier. I'm glad we were able to talk about it. I'm glad we were able to have Ben on to talk about it. And I, too, am very hungry.
All right. Well, Ben, thank you for coming on and talking about this. I'm glad you had mentioned to Connor that this was your favorite Disney movie, because that paved the way for me watching it. I don't know if I ever would have watched it if it wasn't for this being a Twin Peaks connection. Connor and I will be back in a couple weeks to talk about the Eternals. I know I said in our Showgirls podcast that we were going to be talking about that next, but it worked out better this way. We were able to go ahead and line our schedules up and talk about Hunchback of Notre Dame. So we will be talking about the Eternals next time you hear us. And
that's going to be like your closing thing, like every episode you end it with. And next week we're going to talk about Eternals, and then you just never do it.
Yes. Connor finally just like, I'm sick of this. We're talking about it now. So I guess in the meantime, I am the Comics Kid 2099.
I'm Connor Nielsen.
And I'm a guest.
All right. Thank you. We will see you guys next time. Bye.